Great Friday and welcome to our podcast. This is, or should I say, this is our actual television show. How you doing this morning, Kim?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great. This is the Wakeup television show. Again, we're in our test phase, our pilot episode, so we're still working on some technical things, but this is something we're going to be bringing to the people because we believe it's now time for folks to really wake up. And when we say wake up, it's really understand that we got to be in control of our own destinies. And
Absolutely.
even though I still expect there's going to be some things because of our political views that we're going to differ on, but what I like about the fact that we can agree collectively on being solution oriented. And we also have a gentleman that's joining us by phone, remote location, calling in from California, Mr. Willis Victory. Can you hear us, Willis?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing outstanding. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing great, doing great. So, as we like to get things started, again, I believe that we always have to start things off by saying what we're grateful for. I just think it clears and brings a good energy to it. So, I'm grateful for my life, my health, my ability to sit here, walk, talk, stand, breathe, and have sound mind. And I'm grateful for another 24 hours to pursue my purpose in life. So, what are you grateful for this morning, Kim?
All of the above, definitely my health. And also today, February 21st, this is actually 1 year since I lost my dad. He passed away. But I am so thankful for everything that he instilled in me before he left us. And I do believe he's still with us because honestly, I don't think I would have the strength to take on so much that I've been taking on this past year if he wasn't in my corner. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for my family. And I'm so thankful that my 3-year-old daughter seems to be understanding that mom's got to work, but she'll be there at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm thankful. And I'm thankful for this show too and this opportunity to talk to everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. How about yourself, Willis? What are you grateful for this morning?
I am grateful for my life, my health, my children, my family, opportunity to pursue my purpose, bring value, be of service to others, and just bring good energy and spread positive vibration.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that being said, that sets the energy and the context for our discussion. Let's really get into it. So we're going to focus today on talking about housing as it relates in Baltimore and Baltimore City in particular. And now, one of the ways I want to get started talking about housing, and the reason why I want to talk about housing is that one of the folks that I know that you got into some words with, Erica Bridgeford, I give her credit for saying this. She pointed out that all the homicides in Baltimore City can be directly related to where the vacant houses are. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a correlation between vacant properties and murder.
Absolutely.
Now, what the Conscious Roundtable is building, and kind of what my mission and my purpose is to eliminate the blighted properties by buying blocks of properties, renovating them, and converting them back into home ownership. And I know that's going to solve one of the issues. But in the meantime, there's several different people have several different thoughts and perspectives of how that should go about. So, Kim, why don't we start by, you just recently had a video that you shot that you sent me. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about, what created the video, what the video is about, and what you learned from that experience.
Right. So back in July, this is kind of what I shot before, was just the legal dumping situation.
Okay.
And so yesterday I was out and about. I've been interviewing people in the West Baltimore area, just trying to understand what their experience has been living in the area. My opponent, Kwasi Mfume, his whole slogan is experience matters. And I agree, but I think it's the experience of the people, not really his experience. So I've been, just interviewing people. I actually found this beautiful park that was, I guess I was near New Song Academy. And so I went over and I basically turned the corner and found a vacant lot, which isn't too surprising, right?
Right.
But in this lot, there were mounds and mounds of trash, furniture. It was probably the biggest dumping site I've seen thus far. And this was on Mosher and North Mount, right? And so right across from that is a senior living home. And a gentleman came outside and said he had been calling Department of Public Works for weeks. And I thought, you know what, this is what I'm talking about. And so usually I don't take a video and upload it the very next day. But of course, I wanted to tag Department of Public Works and say, come pick this up. And, over the summer, when you tag them, they actually go and do it because, I guess they're embarrassed or their feet's under fire. But, I wanted to make sure I got it up and hopefully get him some relief and everyone that's in that neighborhood. But it's unbelievable when you look at that situation. And I agree with Erica. When you look at the crime and violence, you can see vacant houses up and down the streets. A lot of people don't talk about where Detective Sean Suter, where his body was found, whether you believe it was suicide or homicide. That entire block is vacant over there by Bennett Place. So there's definitely a connection. And so I guess for me, it's like, I look at this and I know that there are taxpayer dollars that are going towards making sure this is getting cleaned up. And in Harbor East or Roland Park or Locust Point, you wouldn't see anything like this. There are resources, there are contractors that have these jobs to do this job. And what they're doing, though, is they're actually neglecting basically areas where I would think there are very vulnerable people. If you live in an area where maybe you don't have an outlet, right? This is near a senior folks home, right? They're not really getting out there and talking to people about what they're dealing with. And so to me, it's like, how could you be about that life? How could you allow, if that was your grandparents, you know what I mean? Would you let them live around something like that, knowing that they can barely walk or move at times? And, that's not something people say, well, why don't people go pick up the trash themselves? I've met so many people, they can barely get up and down the stairs. And I expect them to go out there and pick up some couches that somebody illegally dumped in their backyard? Absolutely not. So hopefully people will take a look at that video and just basically try to understand what I'm saying. The money's there to fix this problem. We're just not spending it properly.
Now, where can I get access to that video?
So I put it all over my social media pages, Twitter, Kim K. Baltimore, Kimberly Klacik as far as Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Okay. Now, the counter to that, though, because I've heard folks make this argument as well, is that the city comes out and picks all that up. And then within literally 20 days, 30 days, it's going to be right back out there.
Absolutely.
Right? So is the issue really DPW not picking it up or the fact that they're not enforcing the illegal dumping?
So it's both and some more, right? So they're not enforcing the fines and the fees with illegal dumping. DPW isn't doing their job. And we're not making sure that it doesn't happen in the future. I mean, this is like the age of technology. You're telling me on some of these places where it's dumped all the time, we can't fly a drone in the area and try to see what's going on? You're telling me we can't have a camera in that area? If you know that this trash is piling up in this one spot over and over again, you're telling me we can't do a little camera? You can get a spy camera on Amazon for like $20. So to me, it's just kind of like, it's lazy. It's lazy. And why not, hey, look, some of those administrators and some of those people in leadership at DPW are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can't ride up and down the neighborhood a couple times a week?
Right. Now, I agree with you, but then I want to add this caveat that I think that it also should come back to a combination of DPW and the community. Like, for example, I get out there in front of my house and pick up trash. I live near a bus stop. Folks constantly discard their trash getting off the bus stop before they get on the bus. So I have to do my part to keep my area in front of my place clean. And I think that if some people, I know I get to your point, some folks are senior or maybe disabled and they can't go out there and physically clean it up. But I think at the same time, there has to be some ownership interest in the community to say, we want to change. We want to see our communities nicer and not add to that. Because I've seen, like I said, I see that if people are used to living in a trashy community, then they have a trash type of mindset.
Right.
And they will continue to throw the plastic bottles from the corner stores, the Snicker bar wrappers and all the candy bar wrappers. So I think it's a combination of all. I'm not saying that I don't want to put everything on DPW, but I don't want to leave them under responsibility. Yeah, you got to get the bigger trash and be much more diligent and vigilant about picking the trash up. But at the same time, the community needs to step up and stop throwing smaller trash in their household trash bags. And then if the community did that, then they'll have a community watch. They can look out for illegal dumping as well. Because folks see folks come and do the illegal dumping. And then, so I think it's a combination of all that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's just rest in one area. I
That's
think
good. You're so nice, King. You're so nice. I know what you're saying, and this definitely is a community too. But if I pay you through tax dollars to do this job, I need you to do your job.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with
You know, I need you to do your job. But you're right. If you live in an area, and this is why it's so important, like you said, flipping these homes, your children are growing up, and the only thing they have seen on their street, some of them, is vacant housings with the, the roofs falling in. And so it's like, to them, it's like, why not throw a Skittle bag? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they've been looking at this their entire lives. And so I'm saying it's wrong, but I get it. And I get what you're saying. It's their frame of mind is like this. I get it.
And I say that because, I grew up in St. Louis, and I grew up as a wayward youth. And my life didn't start changing until I changed first, right? And it's the mental slavery that we have to escape from. And I think so many of us are still entrapped in that mental slavery where we think the solutions are external. Mm-hmm. And I definitely agree that the government plays its part in what we're doing, but I think that we got to first step out and say, I demand to have a nice neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think if we start getting the community out and they start to see folks out there picking their trash up and start taking pictures of that and say, okay, now DPW, meet us and come get the bigger trash, the couches and things we can't get rid of, but the smaller bags, and organize. And I think this is what we're going to do within the roundtable as well. So folks would know I'm not just talking about this from a context of just giving my opinion. We're going to organize community trash days. Mm-hmm. Because this is why I advocate bringing home ownership to the community, not renters, right? Homeowners. And that's why I want to renovate these properties and put homeowners in these properties, because homeowners would be much more advantageous and much more conscientious about cleaning these properties up or keeping the neighborhood up, because they understand it impacts and affects the value of the neighborhood. And plus, everybody wants to live in a nice, cleaner neighborhood.
Absolutely. And when they go to sell one day, they have a better value to their home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it goes, full circle. But I will say, I agree in the fact that people deserve to have clean neighborhoods and keeping their leadership accountable for what they do. And I say to people, if what your leaders aren't doing, that you feel like, you know what, we deserve to not live in a situation like this, then just vote for somebody else. I'm not saying vote for a Republican or me or Democrat or anything. I'm just saying vote for somebody else. And then maybe that somebody else will make sure you get those basic necessities.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. I'm disappointed a lot in what I see, that the continuous game that I would say that politicians here in Baltimore City put on the people, and constantly say they're going to change to make a difference. I've told folks before that, in my opinion, and I know I'm going to get a lot of feedback and vitriol for this statement, but it's what I feel. Baltimore is the most racist city I've ever been in. Mm-hmm. I've been around the world, and that's black leadership. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't believe black folks in general can be racist, because I think racism comes from a position of power. But the folks in the office have power, and I challenge the folks in office that if we were to take away the mayor, the city council, and replace them with white citizen councils from 1930 Mississippi, and replace those with a white mayor and white city councils that hate black folks, racist policy, Jim Crow policy, you tell me how Baltimore City would be worse off.
That's deep.
Right, I couldn't see how it could be worse off.
Yeah, it would probably look exactly the same.
Right, I mean, it'd still be murders, but, instead of us killing each other as much, it might be more murders coming from another side, but murders still be high. Mm-hmm. There still be lack of employment. There still be food deserts. There still have all the societal conditions that we're facing right now in Baltimore City. I don't think it'll be any different.
You know what? That's a great point. I think it would be just the same.
So for a politician to sit here and say, elect me and I'm going to solve these things, and not really be held accountable. Like, I come from the business world. In the business world, we're held accountable by the consumers and the customers that purchase our products, the voluntary exchange for business. And if I'm not delivering a product or service as I promote it, then the customer has the right to not do business with me anymore and actually make comments on Yelp and all kind of reviews. Well, these politicians that we have in office are failing this community. I would say that if I was an employer and I was hiring them, they would all be fired. Mm-hmm. Because if I look out my door, and which I do live in West Baltimore, so I'm experiencing it on a day-by-day basis, that their lack of competence, their lack of their lack of professionalism, and their lack of commitment to making the city better are experiencing it. And if any of the politicians that can come and say that I'm wrong, we invite them to the show and say, stand on the record. You let us know what you're doing. Show us your track record, what you have done. How have you improved your neighborhood and made things better for the majority of your constituents since you've been in office? And why do you feel you're justified to be elected again and run for office right now?
I agree, and I've got a list. Leon Pinkett, come on down. Brandon Scott, come on down. No, it's just, no, you're absolutely right. And they should have to answer some of these questions. Because some people, look at Brandon Scott. He's been in city council since 2011. He's been the chair of the violence committee since 2014. And here he is running on, I can help with the crime and violence. You were supposed to help with the crime and violence since 2014. Where have you been? And so, but that's what makes it so easy for them to run, just to make these promises. They don't ever have to really keep them. And this is a conversation I was having on Twitter yesterday. If you think about, and we might have talked about this before, the methadone clinics, if they're getting money based on the fact that they're needed, why on earth would they completely remedy the situation? Right? That employs a lot of people, just like you see cancer research. Susan G. Komen, how many times have we donated to breast cancer, whether it's at the grocery store, here's $1 in line, whatever. There's a lot of careers based on this.
Absolutely.
So what is the incentive to completely cure it? Absolutely. There isn't one. And so I think in this situation, especially in Baltimore, what is their incentive to make it right? There isn't one.
Absolutely. Now, again, I'm willing to stand up and say that, listen, if there's any politician that can come up here and hold their record down, then I'll give you credit. But until you do that, I'm asking you to show us what you've done and why you feel that electing you for another term will bring the city a change that we need to see. Because we're in a crisis mode. This city is in a situation where there's 60% truancy. And for those who don't understand what truancy means, that means 60% of the kids who are registered in school are not going to school, and so they're violating that. 60%. So that means you take 10 kids, 6 of them are not going to school, right? That's insane. And the fact that we only get 20 or 30% of the people that come out and vote in Baltimore City because they have no faith in the political system, no faith at all. So that's where I say we have to begin to talk about how we're going to change that. Now, what I propose, the way we begin to change that, is to deal with the housing. Mm-hmm. That first, if people start to see a change in the housing situation,
that's first step.
Then that's going to start getting hope, because now people can say, I can see something happening. I don't have to sit here and try to argue facts and policies, but I can see that this neighborhood was once blighted, it's no longer blighted. But then not only changing the housing stock, but also making it available for the current residents who live here so they're not being displaced. Mm-hmm. So I'm not an advocate for somebody saying, well, we want to bring all this sweep and change to Baltimore City, and the residents who've been living here dealing with the crime, the violence, the food deserts, the poverty, so now the city's going to do better. You got to leave. No. For the residents who actually want to stay and want to make the city a better place, our program, and other folks can do this because there's so many houses in Baltimore City. It's 40,000 blighted properties. Do a rent-to-own model. Mm-hmm. Uplift people and help them begin to take advantage and be a part of the change that's going to come. And that's what I advocate. And I think if we begin to start changing things in that dynamic and begin to show quantitative proof of what the impact of changing housing and creating homeownership can do for the city, then 4 years later, I think people begin to see a difference in the attitudes and the mindsets. And then now you got an army of people holding trash, people accountable. And then, as you say, getting the right people in office to hold DPW accountable as well.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% correct. It starts with the homes. And, that would push people. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, we can give training programs. We can, give them a job. And, but if they don't show up, if they don't have that work ethic, what does it mean? But if you have a home that you are now paying a mortgage on, right? Your kid is now going to a decent school because we could do something about the schools. You want to get up and go to work and make that work for your family. It's all connected. It'll be a domino effect.
Absolutely. So, Willis, I know you're on the call. You've been listening. You got any comments, any thoughts on what we've been building on?
Yeah, I do. I just, I appreciate everything you guys are saying. And, I understand what goes on in the urban community in Baltimore as well. And, I just believe that, more positivity needs to be focused on. There's a lot of negative and complaining for the most part. And the focus needs to be on just the solutions and bringing solutions. You can't attack others in doing that. And, I just see a lot of politicians, for the most part, they feel they have to break other politicians down in order to get their point across or, to win elections, etc. And I just think a good debate and a good argument is, one where, we can compliment one another. And as you said at the beginning of the show, King, kind of celebrate each other's differences, but most importantly, bring the effect of, results and resolve. And I think the youth and, our communities definitely need a little more positivity of the approach, the energy, and it all starts with us and on the inside. And I think that's what people are feeling, regardless of their education basis, et cetera. We all have a sense of intuition, and, people will often forget what you say, but they will never forget how you make them feel. And I think a lot of the political approaches are a little condescending, especially to the masses, which kind of takes them away from wanting to be involved and believing in the system and the organizational paradigm of politicians and of the community in the country, especially.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So that's beginning to really examine this on a really macro level, and talking about the fact that, again, 40,000 vacant properties. So what really caused that? Well, Baltimore City was a city that was built for 1 million people. And 350,000 people have left the city over the years due to the steel industry shutting down and the shipping industry shutting down. Those were two major employers in the city. So now, as a result, now others have left after that because of violence and everything else. So now we're looking at with all these blighted properties. And again, maybe Baltimore City would never get back to that size of population because we're at about maybe 634,000 residents currently. Well, the reason I'm saying it is because historically we got to understand the context what created the flight. But now that with that understanding, we got to look at why certain residents are not leaving. One of the things I love about Baltimoreans is that this is a city that people I've seen has strong resolve, that has strong pride. And I've seen that pride go across racial lines. I've seen that pride go across economic lines. I've seen black Baltimoreans and white Baltimoreans love Baltimore. I've seen rich Baltimoreans and poor Baltimoreans love Baltimore. And I see they fight for the city. They get offended when other folks from outside the city talk about the city, and I get that and I respect that. And to me, that is what I want to tap into. I want to tap into that pride of let's protect this city, and if we can all separate and get away from all this racial bias and racial vitriol that we have, because I know this city is sitting on a racial powder keg. If we can really get beyond that and say collectively, what can we do together, black, white, rich, poor, to make this city better? And if you're poor, how can we build a pipeline to build you up so that you can get away from the poverty condition? Like I've argued with city officials, I'm not gonna say any names on this show right now, but they've told me that, King, you're building houses in certain neighborhoods where the average income for a family of four is $24,000. So how you plan to build a house that you're gonna sell for $150,000 where that's the average income? And that's, to me, it's like saying, if you're a teacher, well, the group of kids that we're educating, the average test score is 55. So let's make an A a 65. That's an A. So that way, at least those kids have an A. No, you don't dumb down the education to where the people at. You find a way to lift those people up and keep an A at 100.
Absolutely.
If you're making $24,000 a year as a family of four, I'm sure the right folks don't want to make $24,000 a year. So let's find a way to get them from making $24,000 a year, put them in some workforce development programs, some job development programs, maybe help them start some businesses or get into the business world so that they can make some additional income so they can be in a better position where they can afford the houses and begin to start building wealth. That needs to be the mindset instead of continuing enabling people to suffer comfortably.
Yeah. And I would like to say, you're right. There's a lot of people in Baltimore that have pride in Baltimore, no matter their social economic status. But I would like to say, if you are someone in a position where you can give, right? Say you give $10,000 a year to a charity. I would just ask you to just follow up on that $10,000 that you gave. Because there's a lot of times where that money doesn't meet that person that you were intending to help. And so I see that a lot. And you know, I've been in the nonprofit industry here in Baltimore for 7 years. And we would always show our work, right? You could always come to the office. You could always look in the books. You could always see from Facebook everything that we're posting. You could always see where your money was going. And I just want people to just be aware of that. You know, you could be having pride in Baltimore, and you could be giving back thousands of dollars and doing your part. But if there's no follow-up there, and I know it sounds awful, you shouldn't have to follow up, right, when you give to charity. But we live in an area where sometimes that needs to be done. You know, the job training programs, we have hundreds of job training programs. And a lot of them offer not just a training, but placement afterwards. And if you go and take a look at some of these books, you will see they're not placing anybody, but they're continuing to get grants based on the fact that they're saying that they're placing people in jobs. And so that's a problem, you know, and I think, you know, there are a lot of people that have pride. I love Baltimore. My daughter, born here in Baltimore, was like, oh, you're not from here. You know, it's like, look, I'm here.
Right.
So, you know, if you're here, whether you're a transplant or not, if you're here and you want to do the right thing, you want this city to thrive, why not accept that from someone? Why not accept that help and, you know, push forward in a positive way?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, and this city is one of the city that has such a rich Black history and culture, dating back to the fact that this was, most people don't realize that Baltimore City was the original nation's capital for about a month or two, you know, while DC was still going through its issues. And the fact that this city has produced the nation's first Black billionaire in Reginald Lewis. The fact that we had Thurgood Marshall, who, again, arguably had the most impact on where Blacks' economic conditions are due to his effort and his work. I mean, you can argue him and King, but King wouldn't be able to do what he was able to do without Thurgood Marshall laying out the legal foundation for him to do that. So again, coming out of Baltimore City, you know, so this city has produced some giants, some great leaders. One of the men who I really and truly admire, and Willie Adams, was definitely someone who came to the city from South Carolina and originally got started in Numbers, but he was able to leverage that illegal operation, which Numbers eventually became the Lotto, you know, and change that to the point where he brought up half of Pennsylvania Avenue, more than half of Pennsylvania Avenue, and gave folks an opportunity for businesses to get started in business, because he realized the banks at that time would not lend to Black businesses, which they still don't. But he put his own capital behind those businesses, and that created a thriving community on Pennsylvania Avenue, which created a whole arts corridor that we try and get back to. So it's those giants that keeps me focused. Billie Holiday, Frederick Douglass. You know, we can go on and on as far as those ancestral giants that's been here in Baltimore City. The Clarence Mitchell family, you know, the Mitchells, what they've done. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that I want folks to understand. That's what we got to tap back into, that energy, that historical past, that pride, and let that be why you're in Baltimore City, why you want to fight for this city. Even though I'm new to Baltimore City, only been here for 3.5 years, but I love the city. I love the city so much that I'm putting all of my effort, all of my time, and now all of my capital into bringing forth an economic revolution that this city needs. Mm-hmm. And I say that because this is what I want to say when I want to hold people accountable. I'm about that action. I'm not about the talk. I'm not about the rhetoric. I'm about, what are you doing right now in order to bring a change in this city? And again, that's why I said that I want to work with you. And I know folks may watch this and say, you know, I shouldn't work with you or shouldn't give you the platform because of some of the things that you said and because of where Trump is and how Trump is viewed in this country right now. And my thing is, the reason I'm willing to do that is because, like me, you're about that action. You're not someone who is just sitting comfortably in your house saying what should be done in Baltimore City. You out here in these streets, you walking down some dangerous streets, taking those photos that you've shown in that video, and it looks disgusting. I made a joke earlier saying, I know you staged that. You know? And yeah. That's what people will believe, that it's such an atrocity to have mattresses and piles of garbage and couches all behind people's houses. Mm-hmm. And the city is not doing anything at all about that. But then the politicians are saying, elect me and I'm going to make a difference. Make a difference right now.
Right, you're already there.
You're already there. What
You're
are
an
you waiting on?
official.
Exactly.
Right, Mayor Jack Young, I'll say the names, Brandon Scott, City Council President, you have already been there in these positions to make a difference. So why would we elect you again? It makes absolutely no sense to me. But you know what, you brought up a great point. I just was thinking about, just think back on how Pennsylvania Avenue once looked and then what it looks like today. I mean, you wouldn't even believe you're in the same area. It's amazing. But, you know, that's what I appreciate you saying about that action, because accountability is first and foremost. Trust me, I wouldn't be running for Congress just because, okay? Because a lot comes with that, you know, when they take personal shots and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I know for me to make a positive change, I've got to jump over some of these people sitting in these seats not wanting to make that change because they want to run on, let me help you. You know what I mean? So that's why people are saying, well, why don't you run for local leadership position? It's like, no, that's not going to work. You can sit on city council all day. If you're there to do positive work, but you have city council, and I think you're saying you got to start over basically in city hall. If you have people that have been sitting there for 8-10 years and you're trying to go against them in a vote and try to move something forward, it's not going to happen. There's nothing that's going to come from that. We've got to literally gut City Hall completely for it to make some positive changes. And for me, with this congressional run, I would then have oversight on federal funds that would come into the city. You know, millions of dollars been poured into Baltimore City, and no one can seem to account for it. Even with some of the schools, they can't account for it. That's a problem, you know? And like I said before, Congressman Cummings did a great job at getting federal funds to the area. He did an amazing job. The most powerful African-American man on Capitol Hill, he did that. And for people to then take that money and either steal it, squander it, wherever it went, I have a problem with that, you know? So I'm hoping to win this race, but like you said about that action, even if I don't win this race, I'm going to continue on because I am about Baltimore, and I do live here, and I do live in the greater Baltimore area. I know people have been trying to come at me on that one, but you know, my office has been in Baltimore City for 7 years. You know, my office started out, I was on Greenmount in Charles, around the corner there with that CVS. So I was in my office when the riot started. And people came by and was like, don't you know we have a curfew? And I was like, yeah, but is it for me? Because I'm just working. But so, yeah, no, definitely. I understand it, and I've been here long enough to know that there's a lot of potential here and we could do so much better.
Absolutely. And let's be clear on this, that, you know, I'm crystal clear on the history of the racial oppression, the marginalization. Dr. Lawrence Brown from Morgan State wrote a brilliant article on the black butterfly and the white L. He talks about how all the resources, if you look at Baltimore City, it looks like a L, and you see all the white areas that's predominantly white, get all the resources, the bank loans, the financing, the business loans, and then the outer areas being far east Baltimore, far west Baltimore, consider that to be a butterfly that doesn't get any of those resources, doesn't get any of those loans. And again, living in those areas, I know firsthand working with banks how difficult it is for a bank to give a loan. And so I get that. And that's what I'm saying, that is some of the obstacles we have to overcome. But we cannot sit here and just constantly talk about that from a context of meetings and convening and discussion forums without bringing a solution to it. That's the point I'm saying, is that, okay, I get that, I understand that, we need to know that, but how do we begin to solve the problem? You know, I don't want to sit here, I use an analogy of if we were all kidnapped one day, somebody just threw a black hood over our heads and took us into a room, and then when you take the hood off, we're in a black room with no windows and no lights and no doors, and we don't know where we are. How long do we sit in that room talking about what happened to us, why it happened to us? Why would somebody kidnap us? Why do they have to put a hood on us? Why are we here? How long do we sit in that room before we start to say, how do we get out of this room?
Right.
You know, what can we do to sit here and change the situation? That's what I'm saying, folks. I'm not trying to sit here and belittle any of the racial atrocities that has happened in the past and it's still going on. I'm experiencing it right now as a black business owner. However, there's a possible way of solving that. And it's going to come through collective action. It's going to come through putting the right people in office that's not going to continue this racial redlining in policies, but actually bring significant change. And that's why I'm saying that right now, and I didn't think I would ever say this, that I'm open to trying to explore a different option. I'm open to look at maybe Trump can bring something. Maybe right now is the right time to actually bring Trump something to say, here's something tangible that he can do for this community, to see what he does, right? Because I've done it for the last 3 years with a complete Democratic party here in Baltimore City, and I've got nothing done. I've talked to banks, got nothing done. I'm talking about specific programs to show that not only can houses be renovated in any condition, doesn't matter. Like I said, it could be, we talk about houses that have sunroofs, houses that have no back walls, houses that have nothing at all but just an address that's holding it up. We can turn that house back into a home. And then we have a program that educates current Baltimore City residents who live in these neighborhoods where they can now stop renting from a lifetime of renting. They can actually now transition into a rent-to-own model we call investor-owned, where they will live in a house, and we would then work with them over a 5-year period of time to go from renting to home ownership by educating them every single month on how not only to become financially responsible, improving their credit, becoming mortgage qualified, and then teaching them home ownership pre and post education so that we create a sustainable model. And so when they finally take advantage of the home, or when they actually go get a mortgage and take title to the property that they've been living in for 5 years, they're actually going to have wealth as well, because a portion of their monthly payment goes, a third of it actually goes to paying down the principal. So we're about creating wealth and creating home ownership and changing lives. And to me, that's a tangible program that folks can look at. You can look at the success record, because right now we own 75 properties. We have 15 people in our program, and we have other properties we have to renovate, which is I'm always in the action of raising capital. I'm saying all that because that's one company with one solution. Now imagine if other companies came in and said, we're going to have a conscious, higher purpose type mindset. We want to bring a change to this community. And we all begin to start working collectively towards that. Instead of complaining about what we see and what happened in the past, understand it, note it, now let's begin to start working toward the future.
Yes. Yeah, you just laid out the perfect plan. That is exactly what needs to happen. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear about President Trump and what he could bring to the table. But this is an individual, you have to remember, he's not a politician. He's not a Democrat. He's really not a Republican. He is Trump, right? He's about his Trump brand. And this is a guy who he wants to basically look like he solved the problems, right? If he solved the problems in Baltimore City, he would be beside himself. Now, would he have done it personally? No, right? We would have to put in the work. But if this is somebody that's actually taking down that red tape, that red line, to ensure that we got what we needed to do this, right? So we could stand on our own 2 feet and not depend on someone else. I think that would be huge. And then from what I know, talking to his administration, they're on board with doing that. And so to me, as I say, I know as soon as you say Trump, people are like, oh my gosh, no, not Trump. And it's like, just hear me out real quick, right? And then usually people will start to say, okay, well, that makes sense. This is a person that, yeah, he's about himself, but at the end of the day, if we can use that to make it about us, we have to have a strategy. And that's what I never see really when it comes to the Baltimore City area in general. We never have a strategy like the long game. You know what I mean? We're always thinking about today or tomorrow. Like, what's the plan? What are we doing right now? What's the long game here? And I think you're right. You got to own your home. We have to have good education in every school, not just specific schools. People are going back and forth with me all the time on Twitter that live in like Federal Hill, the predominantly white neighborhoods. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? People come pick up our trash all the time. And I'm thinking, I bet they do, but while they're picking up your trash, no one's picking up trash in Sandtown. How about that? And people, they have lots to say, but I never, ever, ever see them come to the neighborhood and really see what's going on, right? They just kept saying, oh, not true. No, Baltimore's great, right? And then I saw people, they were doing hashtag We Are Baltimore, taking pictures of the harbor. That might be in your backyard, but let me show you what's in the backyard of many other individuals that you don't really validate, in my opinion.
I'll show you what's in my backyard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're doing so good, King. Your backyard's looking good.
No, yeah. I mean, like in the neighborhood that I'm in,
Yeah.
I have a park behind me.
Oh,
or
yes, you
area
do.
that's supposed to be a park
Yes.
behind me, and there's tires and there's trash and overgrown weeds coming through the concrete. So it's not some place a kid wants to play. You know,
Yeah.
and those are things I want to bring change to.
Absolutely, absolutely, and there should be places for kids to hang out and play in. There should be more green spaces. You know, there should be where you can go and run around a track if you want to and work out. And you know, this is what America has these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I want to interject a quote that Booker T. Washington made back in like 1867, where he says, the Negro should not be deprived by unfair means of the franchise. But political agitation alone will not save him. Back of the ballot, he must have property, industry, skill, intelligence, economy, and industry. Without these traits, no race can permanently succeed. He says that we make a fatal error if we yield to the temptation of just merely opposing of our wrongs. He says, whether admitted or not, a white man respects a black man who owns a two-story brick house. So even then, he was advocating that political agitation alone will not save us. We must have property, energy, skill, intelligence, and character, and economics around that. But it goes back to home ownership. And if you look out what America was built on, what this country took off in the 1940s was based on coming back from World War II, the VA loans. And that helped create the middle class. And so many white people benefited from that and was able to start building wealth for their families. And the baby boomers that came up through those eras, through that, and their parents were able to put them now in a position where the equity from the value of their homes increasing led to them starting businesses and putting their kids through college. Again, we as a community, the black community, was shut out from that, from FHA, from National Association of Realtors, but they're no longer holding us back anymore. And this is what I'm trying to educate our people to realize, that in Baltimore City, it provides us an opportunity now where the blighted properties are in our neighborhoods. They're in our communities. So what that means is that we can begin to buy those properties. We should buy those properties, renovate those properties, and begin to build our own economy and our own community so that now we can now be at the table from an economic standpoint and stop being in a position where we constantly have to keep asking for folks outside of our community for help. We can be the change that we see, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it's so crazy. And you know, just to put a little story in this, I was talking to a gentleman 2 days ago in Sandtown. We were talking about the situation at Poe Homes when they lost the water for 8 days. And he said, you wouldn't believe it, but I had a friend that ended up being evicted after that. And it was a gentleman that went forward and spoke on, I don't know if it was Fox 45 or something, and he was telling them, you know, what his experience had been and how he felt everyone was handling the situation. And he said, and then after that, he started getting all these fines saying, oh, you have this, you didn't fix that, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. He said, next thing you knew it, he got an eviction letter. And he said, and somebody said to him beforehand, I'm warning you, don't speak out. And he did. And so I'm not saying it could be a conspiracy, but, you know, this is somebody that paid his rent and paid his fines on time, you know, if he had one. And he felt like he was then attacked after that. And so someone that owns your property or basically owns you, they can do things like this to you. You know, if you're depending on someone for food, shelter, right? What's the difference of depending on a slave master when you were a slave versus to what we have today? If you're someone depending on someone for food, you know, shelter, water, a job, you know what I mean? You're basically, it's modern day slavery is what we're witnessing. And so, you know, people need to understand that it's best to have your own always. And in property, I said the game of life, Monopoly, it wasn't about going around the board. It was about buying property as you went around that board. And people need to understand that that was the real deal.
Absolutely. So Willis, you're still there with us. You know, you and I are going to be engaging in several different business ventures that we're going to be bringing to Baltimore City for the betterment of the city. And I want to give you the opportunity to talk about the ones that we're not putting proprietary information on right now, that we can actually talk about in a public forum. Why don't you share some of those things with our listening audience?
Okay, no problem. I absolutely will. One of the initiatives is a publicly traded company by the name of Phoenix Life Sciences International. And I say this due to a major problem in our communities, which starts with health, and health is wealth. So this particular initiative, I've become an executive advisor of, and I've brought in the roundtable, King and Dr. Ronnie, to educate and make the community aware of CBD value and also alternative health methods. And the significance of the programs and what we have to offer is we have 5,000 acres on Port Vanuatu Island, and we have cooperation of the government as well as an issuance of a 25-year contract for diabetes from the Ministry of Health in Port Vanuatu. And we're looking at bringing the corporation office headquarters over to Baltimore, obviously to increase the job opportunities in the community and impact the economy in a positive way, along with supporting the initiative of conscious roundtable investors. And I say to say, we need more job opportunities, and we need them in a way where we're providing business opportunities and education as well. Kim had commented, modern day slavery, and I have to agree with her on that. Is no one minds working, but also we need to provide some sort of ownership and guidance so that they don't feel entrapped and suffocated by time for the most part. That's the only asset that we can't get back, and that's what we're striving to provide to the community. Just along with, excuse me, the initiative of just taking care of ourselves and is impacting each other in a positive way. And I think our diets are very important with that. And also, what we're able to do from a distance globally is we're able to provide different insurance impacts, and we're able to provide research, and we're able to provide product and care and institutions that focus on a more of a holistic view, which pharmaceutical companies don't like. And King and Kim, I know you're aware of this, and we're able to give them exactly what they need, that I don't believe our country right now is in a position or willing to provide. And that's why we've taken the global expansion route to kind of utilize our influence in what we can do, with our people and other minority groups just around the world. That's one of the initiatives that I'm very proud of and happy to bring forth to Baltimore and the city. We've also expanded into 4 CBD product brands, which we have a coalition of African American farmers. We operate roughly 15 farms now. We should be under the 40 threshold, I would say, by the end of March, beginning of the second quarter. And what the coalition does is it educates our people on how important our soil is and agricultural benefits, due to the fact that we think that we're eating healthy, and we're not. There's a lot of chemicals in the soil, pesticides, etc. So what we're striving to do with the coalition is bring the agricultural, natural, organic back to its essence and grow our own foods, our gardens, and most importantly, take care of our soil. And I don't think people are aware of the effects of the soil. They think they're eating tomatoes or, spinach or whatever have you, but it still has chemicals that impact the body in a negative way, which is why we have retreats at Martha's Vineyard with Dr. Ronnie to kind of detox the body and the mind. I don't think we can make sound decisions as a community or a country or a whole collective of humanity without being healthy. And I'm sure all of us on the radio this morning, we understand the effects of chemicals on our decision making and our mental clarity, etc. So those are some of the few things that we're bringing to the community, and we're offering distribution opportunities in the form of small business opportunities for those that may not be able to afford to invest in and get into the business. We have some stock share initiatives, and we're just looking to educate our people in the power of investing, and investing early, and investing in things that impact humanity in a positive way.
Absolutely, brother. And definitely appreciate you sharing some of those things. And people can get more information as we build on the show. You see this more in future episodes. And like I said, since we're about that action, you also will see examples of that. We invite folks out. If you want to get a tour of what we're doing and you want to hold me accountable to the words that I'm saying, go to our website at consciousrt.com. That's CONSCIOUSRT as in roundtable.com. And you can schedule for a tour, and we give you a 4-hour tour and break down everything we're doing. We will show you the 4 different stages of housing. You can see a house that's a shell, like I said, with a tree growing out of it, a sunroof. Then you can see a house that's been in its original condition that was built by the original builders, and see how that's not really efficient for nowadays. Then you see a house that's a horrible renovation that somebody came in and just did typical, as they say, the proverbial putting lipstick on a pig. And then you see a house that's been renovated the right way, the house that's been renovated a conscious way. And because our belief is this: if you're going to live in these neighborhoods right now, which we're asking people to do, then at least inside your house, you should be happy. You should feel as though I'm in love where I live at. I'm comfortable inside my house. And then work with us to make the exterior comfortable, and that's what we'll do together. We're going to look at, I said, still, we're going to hold Trump accountable. We're going to listen to what he has to say, what he has to offer around his opportunity zones. We're developing an opportunity zone. For those of you all who don't know what opportunity zone is, we get more into that in our future shows. But just quickly, as Trump them passed through their 2018 legislation, the Jobs Act, the way that certain areas of the United States are designated as opportunity zones that have been historically blighted. And they designate these areas to say that if you do development, because they've been historically blighted, that if you bring real estate development and or businesses in these areas, that you can get tax incentives. So in other words, you can take capital gains money and invest in these areas. And if you're willing to tie your money up for at least 5 years, 7 years, or preferably 10 years, you don't pay taxes on your capital gains, and you don't pay taxes on the money that you've invested. If it's 7 years, it's 15%. That's 5 years, it's 10%, I believe. And so Baltimore City has 42 designated opportunity zone areas. We're developing in 2 of those opportunity zone areas. And so it's ways investors who have capital gains that can participate in that. But my point is, that's something that was created through his term in presidency, his administration. And Kim, one of the things, why don't we talk quickly about some of the things and people you're working with, if you can, around how folks can get more information about what Trump is actually interested in doing to expand that and give more folks opportunities. And I'm definitely, as a developer, business owner, open to exploring how we can work with this administration in that context.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is a great initiative, and I took some people from the West Baltimore area about a little over a month ago down to the White House to meet with the administration so they can talk to them personally and ask them personal questions about what they're trying to do. It's pretty simple, just as you explained it, but people also have to understand there are parts of Baltimore, like Easterwood, that were actually left out of the opportunity zones, and that's why I've been talking to Duran. He works with the administration. They're pushing an initiative called Opportunity Now. So the places that were designated by the local leaders, not by President Trump and his administration. So they coined out a map, and then they sent it over and said, this is what we need opportunity zones to be. So now we have the map out, and there's a lot of great areas in there. But we noticed that there were some areas that weren't in, that were left out. And so that's what we were bringing to Duran's attention. And just to give people a backstory, Duran Smith, he's the one that wrote the amendments that got the First Step Act and prison reform through Congress and passed it. So he's from Cleveland, Ohio. He is, just like everybody else. He didn't have this huge, political government background, but he did go to college to learn how to write policy. And so that's what's so important about, the work that he's doing. But right now, what we're focusing on is how we are able to work with King and other individuals to do just that, the situation where we're not just regentrifying the area. That's the key. That's what we should have learned from the DC area. You know what I mean? That's how people get displaced. And this is important because this is at a time where, here we were talking on the show, we've got to own property. We've got to own our own. this is a very great time to invest in Baltimore. So Black people, if you're listening, get your family members together. Even if it's like, a family could put together some money and buy and flip their own row home. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the time to do it. And this is the group to do it with. You know what I mean? You want to be able to not only just build up your neighborhood, but think about when some people come in here and they live in Philadelphia and they're buying up the block, right? When that money comes in that they make each month off the rent, even if they did rent to own, that money is going to be spent in Philadelphia, right, where that guy lives. Right. We want that money to still be spent here. So, this is a great time for people to just invest. That's why I look forward to working with Jerron. I look forward to working with you, King, hopefully, because this is, to me, this is the time. This is a time where you have to say, okay, I don't like Trump, or I think he's this, or I think he's that. I got it. But take advantage of this opportunity while we have it. The empowerment zones, I know a lot of people say, is that similar to what we saw with the empowerment zones? Somewhat. I think the empowerment zones gave too much power to local leadership. And these are the same local leaders that can't seem to find some of the millions of dollars that's already gone into this area. So to me, I think we need to bypass all that. And that's what Jerron's talking about, going from the administration to actual stakeholders in the community, where we just completely cut out the middleman and we do what we need to do to own this property ourselves. So that's the action. That's what I'm about. I've been talking to people about bringing more jobs through the port. We have the second largest port in the country. We don't really utilize it. I've talked to people down there. It says they do have training programs, but sometimes they can't get people to come and take advantage of the programs because people don't know the resources there. Right. And I said, well, that's a breakdown in communication. That should be a simple fix. We should be able to fix that overnight. And the gentleman said, yeah, I don't understand what's going on. So these are all situations where it's not a simple fix, but like you're saying, over the next 5 years, we should be able to see a brand new Baltimore. It shouldn't be that difficult. We just have to have the right people there to want to make a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as we get ready to close out today's show, I just want to do a quick recap, a quick summary to say this, that we talked about making tangible quantitative changes, job creation, redeveloping the housing, business development. Now, I didn't get a chance to get into all the things the Roundtable is doing around business coaching, providing microloans, providing mentorship, because we understand that that's how you change a community. You come in, you understand what the stakeholders' needs are, and you bring in programs that can be measured, programs that are held accountable to the fact of the results they're bringing, but then programs that help uplift folks. But I will add this to it as well, that our programs are not for folks who are just looking for us to do all the work. Our program's designed for the folks who want that change, who want to be about making a difference in their lives, who want to go about changing that generational poverty mindset and condition. And if that's who you are, then come to our website, come to our tours, engage with us, let us work with you to help you change your life. But we can't do any of that unless you want to be a part of that. So if you're just looking for a house, you're looking for a place to stay, the Roundtable's not for you. But if there's other developers who want to be a partner with us and build around us, that's fine, and we encourage that. But again, at the end of the day, we want to bring systemic change to deal with this injustice, this systemic racial injustice system we've been dealing with. But we have to first step up ourselves first. We got to get ourselves clean. Like before you can find a job, you yourself got to look in that mirror, get clean, put your suit on, put your tie on, get your resume ready, then go out into the world. And that's what I'm saying. We got to meet the businesses, the homeowners, developers, the politicians. We got to meet them halfway. But then when we meet them halfway, we want to hold them 100% accountable to the things they're running on and the policies and platforms and agendas that they're advocating for. Absolutely. So as we can bring this thing to a close, Kim, you got any closing thoughts or final thoughts you want to share with our listening audience?
No, I think this was a great show, very informative. You did a great job explaining this, King. That's not my forte, is being able to break it down the way you do. And so I really appreciate this opportunity to be able to get the word out there. And I hope people really do take us up on some of the things that we're offering, because it could be life-changing. You should have that generational wealth thing going for you as well. It shouldn't be a white thing. You know, you should be planning now. So your great-great-grandchildren, they have yachts and they're hanging out in Martha's Vineyard and they're going to great colleges and doing their thing, you know, and then it could start today if you really want to start today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so for those, Willis, any closing thoughts you want to share with our listening audience before we wrap up?
I do not. I think you guys did a wonderful job, and I reckon Kim, yourself, and I look forward to getting the word out, and most importantly, to enhancing investments in our community and in our health initiatives.
All right, and I want to say special thanks to Brother Ross Trey for the production, for being here and putting that out there, and being a community stakeholder with us, and also DJ Rock with WMEG, which we're going to be rebroadcasting this on WMEG live. I mean, not live, I'm sorry, rebroadcast. And of course, you can catch my show on Mondays on WMEG, and we're going to bring other programming to that. So this is going to be the start. We're creating our own media. We're going to get that out there. And like I said, we're about that action. And if you disagree with us, come on our show and hold your position. Until then, let's all be more conscious.